Welcome back to another episode of Psychocinematic. Today we are covering the movie Mean-Spirited, directed by Jeff Ryan, and as always, spoilers ahead. If you're asking yourself why I'm wearing this, then you probably haven't seen the film, or if you're just listening, you can't tell that I am wearing a maroon robe. I just so happen to have 3 of them from a short film that I shot 3 years ago. So Mean-Spirited, you may not have heard of this film because it is from a smaller studio. They reached out to me, asked if I would like to check out their film before it hits streaming. I was pumped and flattered to hear that they wanted me to check out their film and give it a review. So here we are. And to be clear, this is not sponsored. So without further ado, let's get into the things that I found interesting or that stood out. Firstly, the director, Jeff Ryan, is Bryce. He plays the character of Bryce. He also co-wrote this movie with Joe Adams, who I believe also plays a cop in this film. When I was looking up this film online, I saw 3 different synopses between Google, IMDb, and Letterboxd, and I have to say, IMDb has the most offensive one. They call Andy, the main character, a failed YouTuber, and in the film, he says how he's hitting 35,000 subscribers, which to me is not a failure. And if it's a failure, well then, fuck. He's got 7 times more subscribers than me, so sad day. So this film opens up with footage from Andy and Bryce's childhood where you see the incident that this whole movie revolves around when Bryce gets taken into the house and then basically possessed by a demon through this little transference of power that's going on. Anyway, it's dated October 6th, and that date continues to pop up. October 6th is the same day that Bryce goes to LA, and then it's also the same day that shit finally hits the fan at the end of this movie. What is funny to me about October 6th is that is my sister's birthday, but when I looked up this film, it said that it debuted in Europe August 28th. That's my birthday. So this film was just meant for me, apparently. There is a lot of stag, deer imagery in this movie, and right off the bat when you see Andy enter his house and he goes to his YouTube spot, and in the backdrop there's like 2 different deer or stag things on the wall, and then it's constantly in the film, whether it's the mask that the satanic people are wearing or even in the Union Hotel thing, they've got like a deer in the background. It's a constant symbol that comes up, and I think it's foreshadowing the fact that Andy is going to be hunted and basically Bryce's trophy when it's all said and done, as well as being worn when he becomes possessed like one of these masks and puppeted from the inside. I will say Andy is kind of an annoying character, and it's funny to me because he's the protagonist, but he's the most antagonistic character in this film, just constantly pushing Bryce and just being such a little prick that it's almost like he had it coming by the end of it. They're going to head to the Poconos for the weekend, and they're going to pick up Dew, and Dew says how he could kill someone this weekend, a little bit of foreshadowing, and then he also ends up calling the fact that Tom and Nikki are going to be boning all weekend or whatever, and they had a pretty loud sex scene. So when they stop at the visitor center and then they come back out and they see the bloody postcard and then the first robed and masked person in the back, I think that it could have been a lot scarier, and I wish it was, if they would have just used maybe a townsperson, even if the townsperson wasn't actually possessed by this satanic group of people, this cult, whatever it I guess could be labeled as. I think it would have been great if the camera was focused on someone and you just see the blurry image of someone watching, maybe twitching, contorting, or just watching and then disappearing behind bushes just to build some suspense. I think the subtlety would have been awesome for this scene, especially because it's in broad daylight. So they finally get to Bryce's house and we see a bunch of Jesus stuff. There's crosses, pictures of Jesus and whatnot. And it felt like it was a little bit of overkill. I don't really understand the purpose for the stuff except for the crosses because, you know, they got the crosses spinning at the end, whatever. Yeah, cross could be multi-purpose in that manner. Though I do think maybe when Dew is using the toilet that he wasn't supposed to, there's a picture of Jesus above the toilet. And I don't know how many people actually put pictures of Jesus above their toilet. And that could have been intentionally insulting to Jesus, like you have to be in the bathroom where I'm taking dumps. So now they're drinking and playing board games, and you can see a giant goat flag on the back, greatest of all time, but we all know what kind of GOAT they're talking about. Tom and Nikki, to me, didn't feel like a believable couple. Tom being the nerd and Nikki was dressed in pink. So that's basically the equivalent for me as watching Fred and Velma date. And I know in the live action movie of Scooby-Doo, they're like, oh, I dig dorky chicks like you, whatever. That's besides the point. I just wasn't really believing it. When Doo wanders into that satanic room and then gets possessed, I'm so bummed. I wish it was a little more suspenseful because I didn't end up jumping to that scene. And I feel like I could have easily jumped because for me, suspense works wonders. I will say this about the actor who played Doo. If they did the egg cracking scene for real, like that was actual eggs, they didn't make fake eggs and fill it with something that looked like egg yolk and whites. The fact that he's getting that shit cracked into his mouth and not reacting poorly and like can handle all that. Ugh. The shot of Tom getting ripped off into the water and you see his leg out there, I thought that was really cool. And then seeing Doo pulling him on the footage and just the idea, because they're filming this vlogumentary, that everything is going to be captured and it's going to be next to impossible for a demon to get away with doing something because everything's being filmed. Later, they go to the Union Hotel, that abandoned hotel, and it was tripping me out because I went to West Virginia a couple years ago and we went to an abandoned place that looked a lot like that, just a little bit smaller. And I mean, I had to like double take, is this the same place? While they're in that hotel though, there's this scene that kind of takes me out of the film because when Bryce and Andy are yelling at each other, right before the body falls from the ceiling, you can see someone out in the window walking, and nothing really ever comes of that I saw. And I watched this film twice, so unless I really missed something, it seems like that person wasn't supposed to be there. Maybe that was a crew member, maybe that was someone just wandering out in the public. I don't know. Now back at Bryce's, the goat poster is halfway hanging off the wall, and I think they're really just trying to draw your eye over there. So we learn about this transference of power when Andy watches that tape that's waiting for him that says, "I blame you, Andy." And I find it weird because they called it transference of power, but in my head, when you say transference of power, it'd be like, I give this to you, now I no longer have it. And it doesn't seem like it's working that way because Bryce is possessing people, but he also is still demonic. Feels more like a spreading of power. The porch scene with just Bryce and Andy eating breakfast was absolutely beautiful. The lighting was great. The backdrop was great. And in this scene, we learn about Katie. And I don't fully understand the situation with Katie because at the end of the film, Bryce talks about how it takes a special person to receive that gift, and Katie couldn't handle it. So it sounds like she died in the attempt of the transference of power, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's around this time that I started to ask myself, wait, how much storage does Andy have? Because I mean, he's got two what look like Canon C200s, which are like Canon cinema cameras, and they're probably shooting 4K. And how many camera batteries do they have? Because they're shooting all day for 3 days. And so I was just like, man, this man's probably got terabytes and terabytes of hard drives just waiting, memory cards to be swapping out. But that's just the videographer side of me speaking. It did shock me, and I love the scene when Joey gets sucked out of the window. I was like, holy shit, that was violent. That looked really good. So when we're on the dash cam shot, I believe it's when the cop is rolling up and Doo kills him. The time is 6:06 p.m. on the 6th second. This part was really strange to me. I've never heard of someone trying to flush an entire body down a toilet, especially when you look at the way toilets are piped in. They have like these instant arcs, basically to the point where I think the only thing that you could actually flush would be fingers and toes. I don't know if that's some sort of commentary on how crazy you act when you're possessed, or if it was a lack of plumbing education. Maybe there are some toilets that pipe straight down with some big ass pipes that could fit a chopped up body. The fire pit scene was really cool when basically everyone's possessed except Andy and Tom, because every time we see Andy and Tom, the fire is obscuring the view from the camera to him. And I feel like they're signifying and foreshadowing that he's next to go. He's gonna get possessed next. So the flames are encroaching. When shit hits the fan and Tom and Andy run inside and the robe figures are showing up around the house, again, I wish it was just a little bit scarier, a little more intense or something. Maybe even, just some imagery of like when they go to close the door, they didn't lock it, but maybe like fumbling for the lock and then like someone runs up to the door, there's a slam on the glass, something like that, just to like really bring it home that their lives are at stake and time is of the essence. Since this movie pokes fun at the whole YouTube look and their hyper YouTube edits that they were doing in the beginning, I really appreciated the ad that the satanic people started doing about knives and killing and whatnot. And then the little skip the ad thing that pops up. That was cool. Now, once they get to the abandoned hotel and then Bryce has the camera levitate, I really like that idea as well. When Andy picks up the Bible, the first thing that he reads is Jonah and the whale and being in the belly of the beast for 3 days and 3 nights. And the entire time they are at Bryce's is for 3 days, 3 nights. And in the beginning, Andy says how they're going to be in the belly of the beast. So I love that full circle moment. That was awesome. Now for the joke moral of the story. When you hit 35,000 subs, maybe just do a 35K giveaway instead of some eccentric vlogumentary. Might save your life. So overall, I would give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think I would have enjoyed this movie a lot more in high school, back when the found footage was a lot more popular. This movie was fun, it didn't take itself too seriously, and it could easily be the perfect watch for you and the right group of friends on a Friday night. And that's all I have for you guys today on the movie Mean Spirited. Thank you First Names Films for sharing this movie with me and letting me review it before it goes out to streaming. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this movie, and then don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.